Hello, everybody. So for biotechnology, we are going to do a lot of different activities and other sorts of things, but I figured we should do notes at least this one time to kind of explain some of these things, give you an intro to them, and then we can go more in depth later. So first of all, excuse me, what is biotechnology? Studying living things, living systems, to make products for humans, using living things, bio, life, right, to make things for humans. There's a lot of things that fit in here, and we're going to kind of define them real quick, and then in the coming days, we'll go more in depth and see more about them. Up first is different kinds of breeding, or putting organisms together to hope get out the traits that we want to have. We've been doing this for as long as we've had animals and plants. It's been going on for thousands and thousands of years. It is technically a kind of DNA technology because we changed an organism to fit what humans want. That's what that is. That's what technology is. Selective breeding fits underneath breeding. It's kind of a specific type. This is like what we did with dogs. If you want a tall dog, you breed two tall dogs together and hope they have tall puppies. That's selective breeding. So you're selecting who is going to breed together. We've done this with animals, not just dogs, but also domestic cats, other kinds of pets, horses, cows, and a bunch of plants too. Like this wild mustard plant, we bred them differently so that we get all these vegetables from that one kind of plant. Another word for this is artificial selection. When we get to Unit 2, excuse me. When we get to Unit 2, we're going to see natural selection. So artificial selection is when humans select things. One that's not done as much anymore, but sometimes still happens, unfortunately, is inbreeding. So when you want to try to keep traits together in the family, then they breed family members together, which is not great for anybody, including genetically, because if there's one trait, there's especially a recessive trait hanging out in there, then it's more likely to show up. Stem cells. So in your body right now, you have stem cells. They are there to replace tissues, replace cells as they die. The ones that you have in your body are called adult stem cells. Whether you consider yourself an adult or not, that's just what they're called. These stem cells, your adult stem cells, can only make one kind of cell. So bone stem cells can only make bone cells. Skin stem cells can only make skin cells. By the way, I don't think I said it already. A stem cell is a cell that doesn't have a job yet. It still has all the cell parts, all the cell molecules, but it doesn't have a specific thing to do yet. At some point, the DNA will tell it which direction it's going to go. But until that point, it's just kind of sitting there, chilling. So, for example, you have skin stem cells in your skin. So whenever you damage your skin, if you get a cut or scrape, something like that, your skin stem cells can then turn on and make more skin cells. The other kind of stem cells are called embryonic. They're only present in embryos. An embryo is that time in between egg and sperm meeting together, but before the thing is born. So development stages there, that's an embryo. An embryonic stem cell can become any kind of cell. Any single kind. Whereas adult stem cells, the kind that we all have, only replace one kind of cell. So the idea is, if you can take embryonic stem cells and figure out how to tell them which cell to become, you could theoretically make any kind of organ, any kind of human cell that you need. We'll see more about the pros and cons of these as we go. I don't want to make these notes too long, but there's a lot of pros and cons for both of them. Next up, GMOs, genetically modified organisms, are organisms that have been genetically modified. That's their name. So humans have done something to their DNA. We might have gone in and physically changed it. That's usually when you see GMO, it means that we have physically changed their DNA. So if it's something like we just bred it to be different, like those plants from a couple slides ago, that we just call breeding. This genetically modified organism means that we did something to their DNA directly. There's nothing wrong with a genetically modified organism. In fact, if you've ever eaten corn, which I know you have because everybody's eating corn, that's genetically modified. Natural corn doesn't look like that. There's nothing wrong with it. Just corn. Again, more about GMOs later. A transgenic organism is a GMO, a genetically modified organism, but this time the genes come from a different species. So, example time. Sorry if you can hear my laptop's computer. It sounds like it's about to take off. Anyways, example time. The jellyfish have a protein in them called green fluorescent protein, or GFP. And it lets jellyfish glow in the dark. They live in the dark ocean. They probably need that. So what we can do is figure out which DNA makes that green fluorescent protein, take it out of the jellyfish, and put it in other organisms so that they will glow in the dark. And if you're thinking, why would you want an animal that glows in the dark or a plant that glows in the dark besides that it would look cool? Well, there's some times that we want to see something in an organism that maybe we can't see on the surface. Like maybe you want to watch the skeleton develop in a baby mouse or something like that. We can't see that on the surface. But if you attach some green fluorescent protein to that DNA, then we can see it. It will glow in the dark. They're not really any different than regular animals. I have some videos about transgenic organisms coming up too, so save that for later. Although you can always go to Google if you'd like to know more for now. Last up, clones. A clone has an identical DNA. The natural way to make clones is identical twins, because they are from the same egg and sperm that somehow split into two. So they have the exact same DNA. As for how identical twins become less identical as they get older, we'll see more about that. That's something separate. We'll see more about that later. So clones can be made naturally through twins, or we can make them in a lab. So it is possible to clone just a molecule, maybe like just a piece of DNA that you're interested in. It is possible to clone a cell, and it is possible to clone some organisms. It's not the same process for all of them. It's way more complicated to copy a whole organism instead of just a piece of DNA. But it can happen. We can do it for all those things. We do not clone humans. There are laws against it for lots of reasons. We'll see more about those kinds of things later. So, that's it. This was supposed to be kind of a quick intro to all these topics, and then we're going to spend the next few days talking about each one in depth. There is no secret word for today, but thank you for listening. We will have notes again when we move on to the next unit. So this is the last notes for this unit, but there will be other things for your notebook. Make sure you have all your notes filled in. See you next time.